While you've got the stage, Fred, we'll give you the next question as well. It's on career advancement, and the questions we would ask is, what opportunities existed for advancement in each of your job roles, either as a statistician or a manager, and how satisfied with their lives were the people who were in the positions to which you aspired?
Yeah, great. I will preface this by saying I've never regretted the choice of going into statistics. I discovered it as an undergrad. It led me into graduate school, and then I made a decision that I wanted to do actual consulting and some statistics research in industry, and it's worked out very well for me. So far, my career has had three phases so far. The first one was really as a technical statistics consultant or scientist, and I was fortunate to work in two organizations where there really was a well-grooved path of progression on the technical ladder. And there were mentors and models ahead of me on that ladder that I could emulate and really believe that if I do good statistics work, if I make an impact on the company and the client's problems, I can succeed and move forward, and that's the way it worked out. I reached a point in my career where I wanted to do something a little different and play more of a leadership role, and so I had the opportunity to shift over into managing a small statistics group. And that was very important part of my development, to be a player coach, to learn some of those leadership abilities. But in the companies I worked for, where statistics is relatively niche, that role in and of itself, there isn't a career path to stay a statistics manager. And I was really fortunate, as my third phase developed, to work with a senior leader who resonated with my vision of bringing together other disciplines to create a broader knowledge services group. So I'm fortunate in that I now get to manage statisticians and still work in that area, but I get to think about how other information sciences, learning and development, systems, knowledge, science can be brought to bear on that broader vision. As I looked throughout my career at people ahead of me and jobs I aspired to, I'll have to be honest, some are happy, some weren't. And I think a lot of it had to do with their fit in their role, and so I've always tried to look at new roles and new opportunities through my own values, my own priorities, and make the decision that way.
Good, thank you. Okay, Cynthia.
I have had quite a range of positions. I started out doing statistical research, then worked as an economic statistician, then in a policy analyst position. These were early in my career. Then went back to applied statistical research, and then into management and executive and leadership roles. So all of those roles have contributed to my knowledge base as I've moved now into an executive position of being the head of an organization. Most of my career was managing research, and I did not spend as much time as I might have spent as a technical statistician, but I recognized that my strengths were in management and leadership, so moved in that direction fairly early in my career. So what I've had to learn is how to rely on other people and to know what questions to ask and to make sure that I got the right information to make a decision as I moved on to that stage of my life. As I've looked for new positions, I've always looked for challenging opportunities, ways in which I could learn. I've also looked for opportunities where I could contribute possibly in a different way than others could contribute. Sometimes it was because of my gender. Sometimes it was because of my leadership skills. Sometimes it was because I had some background in agriculture. Sometimes it was because I was a statistician.
Okay, and Dan, career advancement.
Okay, thank you. On the question about opportunities for advancement, I think they sometimes occur in unexpected ways. As you've heard, my first job was as a faculty member in a small biometrics unit within a larger department. It was a faculty of size 6. And I was still quite young when I was asked to become the head of that unit. I was in my 30s, and I think it was largely because at the time I was the only one of the 6 on speaking terms with each of the other 5. So that's what led to that advancement.
It's a good position to be in.
And I later learned more seriously that it was that small administrative experience responsible for a group of size 6 that caught the attention of NC State when they were looking for a head of their big statistics department. They were explicitly looking for someone who was fairly early career, but also had had some taste of leadership experience. I might say at this point, that about 5 years into the headship at NC State, I realized that I may had committed to a life in administration while I wasn't paying attention. And while I don't regret the outcome, I would certainly encourage others to be more purposeful about their career path than I think I was. Briefly on the question about how satisfied are the lives of people who were in positions to which I eventually moved, of course, it's hard to say, but I think I can comment on some of the things that seem to characterize those who appear to be happy. I think probably the most important one is that in administrative positions, you have to be able to get personal satisfaction out of the success of the enterprise, real personal satisfaction. There are going to be good things, you hope, that will happen in which few will know what role you played in them, and yet you really still need to be able to get joy out of that. Similarly, for me, the most challenging matters of administrative job are personnel matters. And most of them are known to only a small handful of people, and helping resolve those personnel issues is very gratifying, but most people won't know what role you played. And for university faculty who are in our audience, I might add that in my experience, having been a faculty member, a department head, an associate dean, and a dean, by far the hardest academic administrative job, I think, is that of department head. And that's because the hardest things are the people things, and that's where the people work. They work in the department. I had many more direct reports as a department head than I now have as a dean. And finally, this may be as good a place as any to say that, and this echoes some of the things we've heard earlier, that for my career, it's been the people skills and the communication skills that have proven more important than the technical skills. And in fact, more generally, often now say I use my liberal education more than my technical education.
Yeah, good. Okay, now I have a question for the panel. I heard Fred mention the word impact. I heard a couple talk about leadership positions and management. And I know in Christie's bio, she talked about consulting leadership, I believe was a term that she had there. So my question to the panel is, do you have to be a manager of a group to exert leadership and move in an organization? Or is there other ways of exhibiting leadership and so forth? Any of you like to tackle that one? Nat wants to handle that one.
I believe that being a manager helps you with one type of leadership, but you don't necessarily need to be a manager in order to be a leader. In fact, when I came to the National Center for Health Statistics, I got a position as Senior Scientist for Research and Methodology, and I had no one reporting to me at all. So the director told me that he wanted me to go around and find out what the important problems were at the center and work with people on them. So it was a pretty cool job. So I went all over the place and found out what was going on and got into interesting research problems. And while I was doing that, I tended to get a chance to lead in a couple of ways. One is that I was able to affect some change by suggesting to my clients new ways of doing things that might improve their surveys, in this case, the National Center for Health Statistics. And that was a lot of fun, and I think that's a type of leading. The second type was, I never had, during my entire time in that position, I guess it was 11 years, I never had a research assistant. What I always ended up doing was, wherever I was working with somebody, that division, or maybe the division that I was in, would have some junior people, and they'd work with me on the problem and I think learn a lot from me. And I learned from them too, but that was a way to exhibit some leadership also.
Other comments on leadership?
I will maybe say a contrary comment. I've been in leadership positions as associate director at the very high level in government organizations since 1990, so for quite a while. I had not been in charge of an organization until 5 years ago, and I found that I can be absolutely more effective in charge of the organization in government. There were always obstacles to where I was hoping to lead in my specific area in my previous positions that were almost impossible to overcome. And in my present job, I've been able to assimilate all the skills that I had developed watching other people, some very, very successful leaders of organizations, and been able to accomplish much more than I was ever able to in the 20 previous years. So it does help to be the one in charge.
Sounds like Cynthia wants to be the boss. I think I heard that. Okay, was it Christy, Fred?
Yes. This is an interesting question. Now, for industry, we are moving more and more into collaborations, and we have a lot of across-industry collaborative groups. It's amazing how productive, how successful, how impactful those working groups can be. And in a way, there is really no reporting relationship there, and people come together under the leaders, kind of pulling people together under one vision. So that's really a fine example of influencing without authority. It's true within our own individual organization, if we want to effectuate change, short-term change, we can put that on individuals' goal. We know that's going to happen. So that's the short-term change. On the other hand, long-term change typically will come from people's believing in a particular vision, not necessarily a management position.
Right. So Christy, are you talking about working within a company or between companies or both?
Between companies.
Between companies.
As well as within companies.
As well as within companies.
And in the latter case, it's really the communication, the leadership skill, the ability to convince people to come together under the same umbrella. That's what it kind of makes the difference at the end.
Good. We got time for one more comment if somebody has one on this subject. Fred?
I'll just support what Christy said. I think that's exactly right. I think nobody accomplishes anything significant on their own. They have to get others to engage with them, and collaboration across functions or companies is the way to do that. And leadership and influence are the tools you need. I do think, to build on what Cynthia said, at some point there are visions that are big enough where you have to marshal resources and collaboration at higher levels of the company. And in those situations, it's very nice to have those under your control. Yeah.
Yep.
Let me just add something. In my current role, I had a vision as to where we might go. It took me 3 years to get a management team that would work with me to go forward on that vision. And we've collectively been able to make a huge transformation in the organization. But I had to have the next level of management and leadership on board before we could move forward.